I have, of course, as a Black woman, I have dealt with racism, sexism, all of these isms that used to beat brow out of me. And it was upsetting and it was sad. And I wanted to make sure people were empowered to amplify their own voices, but to also leave space for others to amplify theirs as well. Just to have really thoughtful conversations so we can move the needle.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
You've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Welcome back to Clicks and Bricks. Today we've got Toi James. She is the founder of Red Ink Enterprises. She's also an author. I'm letting her give you the title of the book because it's a little lengthy and I don't want to screw it up. How are you doing today, Toi?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Ken. And thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We're so excited to learn about you and your business and what you do for people across the world. Before we jump into what Red Ink is, can you tell us a little bit about your history and who you are?
Again, my name is Toi James. I worked in corporate America and within the private sector for over 20 years in public affairs, communication, and corporate education. And so I love stories. And so everything about what I do is about building connection through stories, words, and engagement, to kind of put it simply.
Wonderful. So, and we talked a little bit before we jumped and started recording today, and you are an empowerment coach.
Yes, I am.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what the difference between an empowerment coach might be and say but we hear about lifestyle coaches and private coaches and business coaches all the time. What specifically makes an empowerment coach something special or different?
Well, foundationally, the coaching methodology is essentially the same, right? So thoughtful questioning, active listening, all of those things. I specialize in what I call empowerment coaching because I like to remind people that they're empowered already to live the lives that they want. And what I help them do is to create the mindset to just kind of remove all of the barriers and boundaries that prevent them from doing whatever that is for them to meet their goals. Of course, business coaches do the same thing within business. Lifestyle coaches do the same thing within individual lifestyles with their clients.
Right. But you're more on the personal empowerment. What are some of the reasons that if somebody was looking for empowerment, they're trying to overcome something, I suppose, or get better at something. What are some of those things that really resonate well for you that you could really, really help somebody out?
Because I actually believe in people. I know that sounds a little hokey and corny, but I really do believe that people are just strong enough and amazing enough to do the things and to get the things and to live the life that they really, really want to live.
Right.
And even in business, whatever those goals are, I'm just there to say, okay, so let's talk this through. Because sometimes having a conversation with someone and someone asking you questions you never considered gets you to where you want to be. Those light bulbs go off and be like, I never thought about that. Right. And that is the goal of a really good coach. It's not really to inform or instruct. It's really just to help guide through thoughtful conversations.
Okay. I like that. I like that a lot. So you are in a situation with a client that's needs something. They know they have something more in them, and you help uncover that because they might not know. Sometimes it's just a tip or a trick, right? Or a tool set that they don't have yet.
Yeah.
Is what I find a lot of times. It's like, oh, I just didn't have this. Some of the tools that I've used in my coaching is like the 7 levels deep or your super why, those kinds of tools that you don't have unless you've gone through a coaching program to understand what it is that you need to do to get to the next level. And I think it's beautiful that you're doing that for just pretty much anybody that needs it. You've not really niched yourself down to professional athletes or somebody overly specific. So I think it's really special that you're doing that for anybody that needs a hurdle to overcome.
Yes. And that hurts every aspect of our lives, right? So, and with clients, it's just they set the agenda. They tell me what they need.
Okay.
And I work from there. Like again, it's not about instruction. I don't tell you what to do. I don't say, hey, you should consider this. I may pose a question to kind of prompt those considerations, but I meet you where you are to help you to become whatever it is you want to become or to get you where you want to be. And that's in business, that's and process goals, is whatever the goal is, that is what I do.
I heard a great comment the other day from a coach, and he said, I can't really tell you what you should be doing until my house is 100% in order. So yeah, I'm a coach. I'm here to guide and help you through that. But nobody should be telling you somebody else what they should be doing, but they can help guide them through their way if they want that guidance. So I thought that was a really unique way of thinking about being a coach. Is I'm here to tell you what to do, just to help you guide. Right.
That's it.
And my house isn't all the way in order either. So we understand these are tools that we have.
Right. The thing is, when you say you're accountable, like I'm going to do this, I'll ask you, so how committed are you to this? And I'll give you a scale. And it's really all up to you, because you're like, you said it, you agreed to it, you thought of it.
Right.
I own it. And there you go. You own it.
Yes, absolutely. It's so important to have somebody or something in your life that when you are in that good headspace of setting goals and, doing your, however you do it, vision boards or writing down your definite goals, to bring those back and look at them and reevaluate them, because you got that other voice in your head that sometimes is louder than the positive voice that says, oh, we can stay an extra hour at happy hour today. We don't have to go home and get a good night's sleep. We can drag ass tomorrow and it will be okay. That voice is pretty loud. And sometimes we need accountability is what pushes that voice down.
Exactly.
Right. And discipline, all kinds of things. But accountability is a big one. Right.
It is.
Like, oh, no, if I do this, then I can't have my goals or I won't get them because they're going to slip away from me. Right.
Right. Exactly.
So you spent 20 years in corporate America. I bet that was joyful all the way across the entire board. I'm super lucky. I've only had a couple years in corporate America, and I learned quickly it was not for me. Could you tell us the story of leaving corporate America and getting into Red Ink Enterprises?
Sure. Well, like I said, I've worked in public affairs and communications and developing learning experiences, all of that within corporate America. And at the murder of George Floyd, I was asked to put together a program, or actually I was asked to keep the conversations going within our particular organization. And they said, can we do something in 2 weeks? And I was like, oh, give me a week. Let me figure this out. Because to continue something for more than 2 weeks that dealt with education, communications, and engagement, how do we really keep this going, this conversation going, attitudes changing, behavior changes? How do we really address this on a very personal level in corporate America? And the one thing I continued to hear was, I don't know what to say. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I just care about my team or my employees. And I was like, you know what? You can lead with that. Yeah. Right? Just lead with that. That's vulnerability, and people trust vulnerability. And then you listen, and they'll tell you what they need. Sometimes they just need a listening ear. They might need a day off. They might need some time to process. They might need a project with a longer deadline. Just listen and then move from there. And so I realized that there was a broader need. So it wasn't just my organization that was saying this, right? So you heard on the news that DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, was a huge industry and all of that. So I have a space that I specialize in, which is inclusive communications and engagement. So some organizations are really big on education, right? What is DEIB? What that looks like. I specialize in, what does that sound like? How can you make this important to you in your daily interactions with other people?
Right.
And that became really important to me because I have, of course, as a Black woman, I have dealt with racism, sexism, all of these isms that used to beat brow out of me. And it was upsetting and it was sad. And I wanted to make sure people were empowered to amplify their own voices. but to also leave space for others to amplify theirs as well. Just to have really thoughtful conversations so we can move the needle.
Right. It's important and it's scary, these conversations, when you start talking about inclusiveness and what I've boiled that down to in my own personal life is trauma, repeated trauma, micro trauma, repeated over and over and over. It's really hard to kind of navigate through that. And communication is one of the ways that it enlightened me quite a bit. And we had a little conversation about, and some people would say that I put my foot in my mouth in that conversation. We don't have to go over it here, the total public and air all the laundry. But it was a good conversation that I ended up having. And luckily I was in an environment that had open-minded people and we had conversations, right? And that's a beautiful thing. But very frequently, on the opposite side of that, innocently enough, I've made comments that would put me into a racist bucket. As a person, I'm not racist, but institutionalized, this country has gotten there, right? And it's sad. I don't know the fix because it's media. It's a huge issue that I don't know how to solve it. I've got some ideas on solving some small issues, but I think it's a huge topic and it's an important one to talk about and it's hard to talk about. So thank you for putting that step out there and being a champion for this conversation to have happen. And you wrote a book specifically about this and you told me it's a fast read, although you don't have an audio version yet. So, but I'm gonna struggle through it, right? And get through because I think this is important. It's an important topic. Can you tell us about that book?
Sure. It is called Talk About It, 12 Steps to Transformational Conversations, Even When You Disagree. Again, I told you it was a mouthful, but I wanted to be clear with the title because there's so many times that we're so nervous about having what we deem difficult conversations, right? So the focus, if you walk into a conversation just to understand and to connect with that person, it makes any conversation less difficult because you're not there to debate, berate, argue. You're really there to kind of share. It's a two-way street. So how do you do that? And this book, based on coaching methodology, gives you tips and tricks on exactly how to do that. Do's and don'ts. It's stories about how do you talk about religion and faith? How do you talk about homosexuality? How do you talk about race? The same steps.
Right.
How do you hold space for people? Because if we're having a one-on-one conversation, I am going to literally just come from a place of inquiry, not judgment. I'm just going to ask questions to understand.
Yes. I found in my life, which has been bizarre with all kinds of nuance, that most of the time it's not even a disagreement. In reality, it's a difference in vocabulary and understanding. It's not even that we're disagreeing, right? We can all agree that we have a police violence issue in this world, in our country today, right? Our police are taught violence first, right? That's how they're taught. It's horrible across the board. And we end up with, horrible situations where people are dying in our streets from our police officers. Just a horrible, horrible situation. And I don't even know how to, where do you go from there? Literally, people are dying on our streets.
Right. And so it's really understanding where that comes from and understanding the whole history of police patrol, right? So having those conversations and taking a deeper dive and understanding where this all comes from, how systemic it is, and it's not just individual officers, it's really within the system. And again, people say, well, they're good officers, and you're absolutely right.
There are.
But there again is where's the accountability, I think, is what people really want to address. And so with any topic, let's get to the root cause and then move from there. But you can't not at least have the conversation and agree to what the problem is and potential solutions.
Correct. Absolutely. And there is a problem in this country across repeated problems, and it's a very challenging thing to fix. And I think the first step to fixing those is having the conversations and talking about them and acknowledging, hey, we do have problems. How do we fix them? Right?
Exactly.
And I think the how do we fix them narrative needs to be much louder than it is today.
Yes. And action needs to be put in place. And I know some people,
it's a lot of like head scratching, or at least I feel like there's a lot of head scratching. At least on me, it's a lot of head scratching because I don't know what actions to take. Right? I'm just like, oh shoot, this is a huge problem, and I don't know how to fix it, which makes people tear down and really struggle with what to do. So unfortunately, I think they turn a blind eye to it. They don't know how to fix it. So
yeah. We all have a role to play. We do. And that's the thing, identifying what that is. If that's voting, if that's officers holding their colleagues accountable, if that is policies. So there's everyone just needs to pick their role.
In your book, you're diving into more issues than that. You're diving into how do I have conversations with my children about sexuality or my employees about sexuality in the workplace, and letting the trans person come to work comfortably and in a safe environment, right, is important. That they're safe in that environment. As leaders, we have to create safe places for our staff. And if we're not doing that, then you're just never going to grow your business.
You're not. And I always say, bring your full professional selves to work, because people get caught on the fact that bring your full self to work. I don't need to know all of that. And I was like, you're right. You don't need to know what I look like when I first get up in the morning. But what I'm going to do is bring my full professional self to work. So it's going to be all of me in a professional setting to get the job done. But if I have issues at home, I want to be able to come to my leader and say, hey, I'm going to need to take an hour because I have to go take my mother to the doctor. I should be able to comfortably say that.
Absolutely, you should be able to say that. And and I think there's been a drastic change in work environment. I don't know about ethics. It's a whole different conversation. I think the work environment has had huge changes since COVID, and we have this great resignation that employers and leaders are starting to realize, oh shoot, this isn't you should be grateful you have a job. Shut up and get your reports in today or you're fired. They're realizing that, oh shoot, my employees are my customer, or a leader there is their obligation is their employees. Their employees then take care of the customers, right? And if you don't take care of your employees, they're not taking care of your customers. So that's to me pretty straightforward, simple stuff. And we live in at least in my community, I live in a very try to not decentralized. I live in the internet too much. A hodgepodge of I live in a melting pot, right? We're every nationality you can think of. I just had a kid yesterday tell me some religion. He's like, oh, it's a new religion. You wouldn't know it yet. So I'm like, oh, awesome. I'd love to learn more about your religion. But it's a lot of fun when you have all these different cultures and stuff in the mix, and if you can have open conversations about it, it makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's more like as opposed to, I know we always said, I like to see it as a salad, right? You put all these amazing things inside and it's beautiful and amazing and delicious. Yeah, as opposed to a melting pot where everything's kind of blended together.
Right.
Because I think the difference is sometimes where the magic happens. That's where you learn. I love stories. And so I don't want to hear my story all the time. I know my story.
Right.
But even the nuances in a story like mine, the nuances is what makes it magical.
Right.
And we have to leave space for that. Yeah.
I had one, this is about 2 or 3 years ago. I had an employee, and I live in a fairly, like I said, it's very mixed, but I would say at least 30% of the community I live in is Muslim. Right. Mm-hmm. And one day I was at work and I asked the kid that works for me, PJ, and we're pretty good friends and outside of work. I'm like, hey, PJ, what religion are you? Because he didn't take off one day that I thought he would take off. Right. And I'm like, and I thought he was Muslim. And he goes, oh, I'm a Hindu. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And we had a really good conversation for probably 2 hours. And he educated me on what it is to be Hindu. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And another employee overheard that conversation, and he was really offended that I asked somebody what their religion was as their employer. I'm like, well, as their employer, I think it's important that I know at least something, because I need to be open to the days that they need off and be somewhat sensitive to their needs, right? So that was a hard one for me, that I was trying to open up and somebody else got offended. What do you tell people when they try to open up and they accidentally offend people?
One, I always give people the option to open up.
Okay.
Right. So as opposed to saying, what's your religion? It's like, I'm just curious. I noticed that you didn't take off when I thought you would. Would you mind sharing what your faith is? But feel free, if you don't want to, that's okay. And make sure that you're okay with, I don't really want to discuss that. Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm looking out for you as a leader. And then leave it there. If they want to come back, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. But always leave space for the opportunity for them to decide how they want to move forward.
Right. In this particular situation, I didn't offend the person that we were talking to. I offended somebody that was, I would say, eavesdropping at the time in actuality. But, and it was just, I had to tell him that, hey, this is a situation that I don't have to know his religion, but it might help our relationship if I do.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, if you lead with that, but you have to give them the option to discuss it or to not discuss it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And that's I guess as managers, we probably underplay our influence on our staff members.
Yes.
Right. So we have to really downplay who we are when we're having those conversations, or not be as aggressive as we would in other places, for sure.
And if you have a relationship with that particular person, they would. Sometimes it starts with that. If you ask me and we just met on the street and I'm like, I don't know you, sir.
Right.
But if we already have a
that would be odd. Yeah.
Right. So, and the same thing happens in corporate America all the time. You're my leader and all you do is dictate to me what I need to do. And all of a sudden you're asking me personal questions. I may be taken aback. Right. But if we are developing a relationship while we're working together, that's a whole different feeling.
But, one thing that I've implemented years ago, and it took me a long time to figure this one out, and it helps hugely in this particular case scenario, is I don't put more than 10 direct reports to one person.
Okay.
Because if you've got 100 people under your direct report, you don't know them all. You're not really nurturing them and growing them as team members. And I'm sure there are some industries that works in, but for me in IT or in coaching, it's 1 to 10 people is a really great ratio that they can know them, understand them, and be able to understand all the nuances of what's going to get that person the most productivity in a healthy, safe way.
Yes.
So, all right. At some point, Toi, you made the decision to leave the comforts of corporate America. Now, corporate America has its downfalls for sure, but it comes with a lot of safety and security, or at least it comes with the perception of a lot of safety and security. And you said, hey, I'm going to break that chain and I'm going to go out and start my own firm and do my own thing. That's a pretty emotional time in a person's life. And it takes a lot of different skills, right? Tenacity and endurance and confidence. And everything under the sun to pull up your pants and do that. Can you tell us what that story is, leaving corporate America into Red Ink Enterprises?
Sure. Again, like I mentioned, I was already doing some of this work in corporate America. So I created what I'm doing now. So it wasn't like intellectual property is something I created within the organization and realized this is actually my sweet spot. This is what I'm good at. This is what I love. As a coach, my friends will tell you that I always, before I became a certified coach, we know you're going to ask questions. So I'm going to, when I need help thinking through something, I'm going to call you because I know you're going to just be like, so what about this? Well, what does that mean? So have you considered? That's just the nature of who I am. So it all just kind of came together. Now, quitting corporate America was not an easy decision because I've always been like, well, I need a job because that's what I grew up hearing. Some people grew up with parents who were more entrepreneurial, and it was like, hey, I'm going to show you these ropes. I was told, get a job, take care of yourself. Always, always make sure you can take care of yourself. And so I did that. But like anything else, there might be an endpoint in certain positions. You get laid off and all of these things. So there's still uncertainty. So when I left my role in corporate America, I was like, what is the worst thing that could happen? I'd have to get a job if I didn't succeed at this time.
Right.
If that's the worst thing that can happen, I got to get a job anyway. So I'm leaving a job. So I have to just go back to work. Okay.
Right.
I could give that a try. And sometimes you just got to do it scared. I was absolutely terrified, but I had a network of people who still believe in me, who support me, who guide me. I have mentors. I have a personal board of directors that I can go to, business leaders I could talk to really understand my business, to understand my clients, all of those things. But it really is about relationships. And not to say every day is easy, because it is not, right? But I have people I can call when I need support, whether that's emotional or otherwise. My business is relatively new. It's only 1 year and 3 months.
Oh, wow.
But I love it.
Yes.
I love what I do because I think it's meaningful and I think it's needed. And so I always remember my why. So if I were to tell anyone who is sitting on the sidelines trying to decide, one, have a plan. Start putting a plan in motion. Decide when your end date's going to be. Make that the end, work the plan. Always revisit the plan.
Yes. Wonderful. I love it. When you left corporate America, as we all know, that's a challenging. And after the fact, I talk to my wife about this a lot. After the fact, she's like, "You're never going to work for anybody else." You tell me, like, why were you ever scared of doing this? Like, you're never going to work for anybody else. But you said finding your why, right? And there's a lot of coaching tactics and strategies on uncovering that why. And it is super important to have your why and your end date, right? If you don't have those two things, I think you're lost. If you don't have a clear definition of where you want to be and a clear definition of why you want to go there, you're just you're going to go somewhere else. Right.
It's like going to the grocery store hungry. You end up buying a bunch of stuff you didn't need.
Yeah, you might end up there, but you've got all these other possibilities that you might end up in as well. So can you will you share your why with us?
My why is because I know what it's like to be marginalized in the corporate structure. Again, I'm a Black woman. So I've had experiences that people have heard about not being promoted, about being questioned, about capabilities. Now, I come with the bachelor's, master's, certifications. I'm a certified project manager, and I'm, being constantly questioned about my capabilities. And I'm like, but I've been doing this. You've seen my work. You've heard from people who work with me. Why am I continually struggling to prove myself of my worth of moving up the ladder? The glass ceiling is real. And I said, okay, if you don't see my value here, let me move elsewhere. And it wasn't, in hindsight, it wasn't that I wasn't doing a good job. It was that I was doing such a good job. Moving me someplace else would have hindered the productivity of that group.
Yes.
Which is not necessarily fair to me, but it was great for the company. So I did what was best for me. But in that, I also discovered what I love to do. And so why not, at minimum, try?
Yes, I love it. So you said the glass ceiling is real, and I don't want to take that away because it is, the perception is that it is real.
It is.
Right? And perception's reality, at least while you're perceiving it in that way. And it was real where you were at, but you took a step to the right or a step to the left, and that ceiling's a lot higher now, right? Or maybe it doesn't even exist in this other place, right? So, it's a really tough call because that glass ceiling is most of the time. There are scenarios where people don't have any control over their situation, but at least 80 or 90% of the time, you can make a change and that glass ceiling goes away.
Yeah.
Or it goes way higher. One of the two, right? I'm sure we'll always put our own hurdles back on ourselves. So congratulations on seeing that and making that step and removing that yourself from a situation. I mean, corporate America is designed to keep you from moving too far. They need employees. They have to have workers to process the data, to get the stuff going through, right? That's a real thing. And being a high performer in a department, that department doesn't want to lose you.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I get that. And again, there's some amazing managers and there's some amazing leaders, right? So it's really, and my goal is, and what I do is to turn all managers into leaders.
That's a great goal. Because I feel like I was, I'm fast, I'm aggressive. I'm a lot of things that make me just a natural leader. But, I was thrust into management at a very young age and I was horrible at it. I was horrible, like so bad. I was not a leader at all, right? I was a taskmaster. I was you idiot. Why don't you know how to do this kind of person, right? It was not good. And, I've had up to, 300 direct reports at some points in my life. I wasn't good at it. So, I'm getting better at it every day. Still probably not, I'm not the best by far, but I'm way better than I used to be. So I think it's important that we always have these conversations and move managers into leaders, because I don't think we're getting rid of corporate America.
No, not at all.
And it's really sad. I hate that people wake up every day, and I did this for about a year of my life, sat at the end of my bed thinking, I don't want to do this day. I don't want to go into this office. I don't want to do it. And at the time, I thought I had to. Right? Like literally, I'm like, well, if I don't, then how am I going to make the rent? And how am I going to make the car payment? How am I going to do this? And how am I going to do that? And it was miserable, a miserable existence. So part of that was my management team, though. Mm-hmm. That misery was, it's 7:01. You were supposed to be here at 7. I'm writing you up today. Well, come on, man. Like it's not a good existence. And hopefully that is deteriorating in corporate America, at least as in my companies that I operate. So congratulations for turning managers into leaders. That's an important task to do. You wrote the book. Can you tell us one more time what the name of the book is?
It is called Talk About It, 12 Steps to Transformational Conversations, Even When You Disagree. All
right. Out of those 12 steps, what's your favorite one or two?
Asking thoughtful questions, of course, because I ask a lot of questions. And I think if you come from a place of inquiry, even when you're upset, no matter what your feelings are, if you just ask the questions to learn, it could really change the game in any conversation. And with that, I think active listening is super important, because the goal is not to hear what you want to hear, what you think you heard. It's really to listen to the person who's saying whatever they're sharing and repeat back to make sure you understood before you continue with the conversation. And
absolutely.
So I would say those two, and as well as just kind of setting the stage. How do you even prepare to have them? I will never just walk into your office and be like, you know what, I have a problem with you. And you'll be like, I'm just having my coffee. What are you talking about? So no, it's about, setting some time on your calendar saying, hey, I would like to discuss this. This is kind of what I would like the outcome to be. I really want to understand this, that, and the other. How does this work for you? So it gives you a moment to prepare for the conversation. It gives me time to prepare. So when we sit down, it is a productive, thoughtful conversation.
Yes, that is so important to have that. Now, the second two are a little easier to understand. Active listening, you can go on YouTube and get some really great 15-minute little speeches on how to improve your active listening. But mindful questioning is a little more challenging to teach somebody how to do. Do you have any tips or tricks on how do you get to a point where you can do curious questioning or better questioning?
It's so funny. One of the tips in the book is, and it's super simple, to get people talking, you ask how and what. Start your questions with how and what. Is will get you a what, yes or no.
Okay.
So that is super, like, just think through your questions, like, how do I get more information? You
Right.
start your questions with those two words and you're good to go.
And I think the mindset shift is in business as entrepreneurs and as leaders, we're in a weird position to where sometimes we're negotiating and sometimes we're empowering. And when we're negotiating, you want to phrase the question to get the answer that you want to get. But when you're empowering, you want to ask the question to get the real answer.
Yes.
Right.
That is perfect. Yeah.
And as a leader, you've got to be able to switch those gears. You got to know when I'm negotiating for the best price or to get more value out of whatever, and when I'm dealing with a human being. And I promise you, I fail at that more than most people on this planet because I'm a wildly analytical guy and I break everything down to ones and zeros. But it helps tremendously, and it will literally inflate the tires of your bus if you can make those shifts as a manager in your company. So, Toi,
absolutely.
I've had so much fun talking to you about all of this stuff, and we could talk for days, I'm sure, about inclusion and equity and equality, and all of those things are wildly important to me. So thank you so much for doing what you do and putting these topics out in the forefront so that we're not going to get better unless we're talking about it. And you literally wrote the book, Talk About It. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Do you have anything that you could give the audience today if they're listening?
Yes. All of your listeners will be able to get the book at a discounted price through bookbaby.com. I will share the information with you so you can share it with your listeners.
Right. We'll put all the coupon codes at the bottom of the screen, links to the book, all that stuff.
All of that.
Yes, if you're watching the clip, you'll have all that information on how to get the discount, the book, Talk About It, from Toi. I've had a blast. Anything else you'd like to leave the audience with before we go?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Ken, so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed talking to you. It's been a lot of fun, quite educational as well. I learned a lot about you and just the process of how you became a leader. So that was really helpful. But no, I just really want people to know that they are empowered to live the life that they want. And
awesome.
Although conversations can be difficult, they're also very easy when you care.
And if somebody's looking to empower themselves or their team and they wanted to work with you directly, how would they get started with that process?
Oh, absolutely. Please just visit the website, redinkenterprises.com. Again, that's red ink and just think red ink, enterprises.com. And all of the information is there, as well as how to contact me directly. You could find me on LinkedIn. My name is Toi, Toi James. I'm happy to connect. And if you read the book, I would love to hear from you. I always like to know how it really did support developing stronger relationships, whether it's in the workplace or outside of the workplace.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, Toi. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thanks for watching today's episode of Clicks and Bricks. Get to work.